Welcome to the Diverse Minds podcast, where we give you the tips, tools and techniques you need to be a mentally healthy and inclusive leader. Each week, you'll hear about a variety of topics linked to mental health, well-being and diversity that will enhance both your professional practice and personal well-being.
Welcome to the 54th episode of the Diverse Minds podcast. On today's episode, I'm going to be talking about social media, our mental health, and whether social media helps or hinders us, and the impact on our mental health and well-being. Now, I've decided to talk about this topic because Sunday the 5th of September was the first Digital Detox Day. Digital Detox Day is a collaboration between #IamWhole, an organisation co-founded by Jordan Stevens of Rizzle, beauty blogger Zoella, and the cosmetics brand Lush, and you might have seen the posters if you've walked past any of the shops. The aim of Digital Detox Day is about raising awareness around the negative impacts that social media can have on our mental health, and to enable people and help them to form healthier relationships with their devices. The whole idea for the day was for people to step away from their phones for one whole day. Now, we may be able to stay away from our phones for a day, but the fact that many of us need our phones to communicate, to commute, and while we work at home it's become more and more essential, means that this is likely to be very short-lived. So this is how we live now, right? With our mobile phones in our hands. And I remember about 18 months ago when I dropped my phone, the first time I'd done it actually, I dropped my phone on a tile floor and smashed the screen. And I had to send it off to get repaired, and it only took about 3 days, but I really did struggle without it. It was as if someone had kind of hurt one of my limbs quite badly, and actually it concerned me quite a lot. Now, the Royal Society of Public Health found that social media is actually more addictive than smoking and alcohol, and that using social media for more than 2 hours per day is associated with poor self-rating of mental health, increased levels of psychological distress, and also suicidal ideation, which is topical because, of course, on the 10th of September, it's Suicide Prevention Day. And please do check out podcast number 3 if you want to know more about that. And a fifth of young people, according to their survey, say they wake up in the middle of the night to check their social media messages. And an Imperial College London research published in August 2019 found that heavy social media use disrupts girls, in particular, mental health significantly. This was a comprehensive observational study and the first of its kind, and they looked into platforms such as Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, and WhatsApp. The study was published in the Lancet Child and Adolescent Health Journal, and the researchers looked at almost 10,000 adolescents aged 13 to 16 years from 1,000 schools in England as they progressed from year 9 in 2013, so that's being 13 to 14-year-olds, to year 11 in 2015, so 15 to 16-year-olds. At all 3 time points, young people reported the frequency with which they accessed or checked social media. Very frequent social media use was defined in the study as using social networks, instant messaging or photo sharing services such as Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat and WhatsApp. A multiple mix of these sources, so 3 or more times a day. In the second year of study, teenagers completed questionnaires and were asked about their experiences of cyberbullying, sleep and physical activity, and in the final year completed questionnaires about their life satisfaction, happiness and anxiety. So it is self-reported data surveys. So in 2013, of the 13,000 children interviewed, 43% were boys and 51% were girls used social media multiple times a day. And by 2014, this had increased to 51% and 68% respectively. 69% of boys and 75% of girls use social media multiple times a day. And the 2015 surveys revealed that persistent, very frequent social media use in previous years predicted lower well-being in girls, with girls who regularly use social media very frequently reporting lower life satisfaction and happiness and greater anxiety in 2015. In contrast, no significant associations were identified by the boys in the survey. However, if we were then to track them further, who knows what the implications would be. Now, what I don't want to do is say that all social media is bad, because it's been such a lifeline, and prior to lockdown, social media usage for adults, so anyone over the age of 18, and young people alike had been growing year on year. It was thought that 42 million people in the UK use social media on a daily basis, so this equates to around 62% of the population. Now, during and post-lockdown, UK adults spend around a quarter of their waking day online, and this is from a BBC article that came out in June 2020, and there's a link in the show notes. And still, 16 to 24-year-olds are most likely to access social media more regularly. Clearly, there are many, many benefits of interacting online, such as keeping in contact with family across the globe, connecting with people when we couldn't see anyone, having some kind of social life, and making sure that we met people virtually who had the same interest as us and we could keep going with our hobbies, etc. And it really does support people who may not be able to leave the house or who feel isolated. And this was particularly pertinent with many citizens talking about their experience of being able to access the theatre, having mobility impairments or facing various barriers, which meant they couldn't usually do that. So like I said, I'm not condemning it and I'm not saying it's all bad. However, on the negative side, as we've heard about from that Imperial College London study, social media does impact adversely on self-esteem, confidence, and perfectionist tendencies. Now, we all know adolescence has and is and will always be a fragile time. There's rapid physical development and emotional changes fueled by hormones, much more rapidly perhaps other stages of our lives. To then place social media on top of this can add another dimension of pressure on the journey to adulthood. And we all know that it's really easy to look at other people's happy photos and start comparing their lives to ours. And as many people say, comparison is the thief of joy. But most people present the best parts of their life, so there's a real differential between reality and their idealised moments we see when scrolling through feeds. And this absolutely makes us feel like we can't measure up. We can't lose enough weight, we can't tone up enough, we can't have the most amazing food, we can't go on the most amazing holidays, we can't have the most amazing lockdown moments if that's what people were showing. And then this makes us feel that we're clearly not doing something right if everyone else has such a wonderful life and is so enchanted with it. And this has become an increasing area that psychologists have been looking into. And there are consistent findings to show that heavy social media use, so 15 plus hours a week, which interestingly might not have been us before lockdown, but may well be now, is associated with poorer mental health. Plus, we know that being in front of a screen puts strain on our eyes. It also puts extra strain on our minds as we're having to interpret body language. And a study from the University of Pittsburgh conducted a few years ago of young adults suggested that heavy social media users were 3 times more likely to be depressed than occasional users. So all this research does add up. Okay, so what can we actually do? I mean, one of the first things I would say is to ask yourself, how do you feel about your social media usage? And this is something that I want to share, is that I actually really enjoy the social media that I use. I don't tend to see much negativity. LinkedIn is the professional platform I use. My personal Facebook is very personal in terms of not being for business. I have a business Facebook page just to update people about my projects and things that I'm working on. I get very little negativity, if any, on that. And my personal Facebook page, I share a lot of articles. And Twitter, because I'm quite small on Twitter, I don't see a lot of the negativity that I think is out there. So one of the things I would say is think about your platforms. And I've deliberately chosen not to have a presence on Instagram, because I don't want to see the things that might suck me into starting to compare myself. But everyone has their preference of platforms. So think about what's working well for you. Are there certain platforms or profiles or images that bring you down? And also things that make you feel positive that you can contribute to, that enhances your well-being. But also what you might see in other people, whether you have young people in your family or that you mentor young people, or think about your colleagues or team members that you either manage. So you might see changes in emotions. For example, people become more tearful, panicky, exhausted, and unsure of themselves. Now, that might sound like a lot of us over the last tumultuous 5 months, but this is also, it could be anything out of character. So it might not be social media usage, but remember, it's always really important to have that conversation. They may be absent from online or physical social gatherings unexpectedly, or socially withdrawn when they are there. There might be increased irritability and snappiness over small details, over how to take photos, how they want to be portrayed on social media. There might be an inability to deal with the usual school, college, or work assignments. Now, there also might be increased discussion about their physical appearance, going on diets and fitness programs regularly, or they also might be hiding that. There may be indecisiveness or unusual decision-making. And they might also be seeking constant approvals from friends, online, face-to-face, putting more and more posts on to get those likes and get that acknowledgement. And then also physical aches and pains, because your body is speaking the mind. And poor sleep quality, especially with young people, if they're checking their messages in the middle of the night and then waking up, and all the things I've just described are going to be exacerbated. Now, please bear in mind, this is not a diagnostic checklist, and a lot of these things will also overlap with eating disorders, depression, anxiety that may or may not be related to social media. But I'm really pleased to say that there's quite a lot that we can do. So whether this is personally, or you're supporting someone through social media usage and they want to change it, or you're having a conversation with a team member or a colleague, think about setting aside a specific time or sort of short bursts of time throughout the day to use social media and sticking to that. I know that many people find deleting apps from their phones super useful and using desktop versions only. So that presents a bit of a barrier, because when you've got your phone, you don't have all the apps available to you. Following wellbeing tips, as I mentioned, and life-affirming content can really help potentially reduce comparison and perfectionist thinking. Join those positive groups online or face-to-face, whatever works for you. And be honest about how you're feeling and whether you feel that this comparison is being the thief of joy and why that might be the case. If there's certain people that post things that really suck you into the vortex or make you feel a certain way, think about muting them or blocking them for a certain period of time. Also, as I've mentioned when I talk about sleep, it's really important that you think about the blue light that the phone emits and other electronic devices. And if you can't leave your phone for a day, because I know it's challenging and we need our phones for lots of things, think about switching off your phone for an hour prior to bedtime to reduce that blue light interference and increase your sleep quality. And instead of looking at your phone, why not read a book? Did you know that reading a book for just 6 minutes a day can really reduce stress and overwhelm? Keep and start a gratitude diary and list 5 things you're grateful for, so you're focusing on what you're grateful for, not what you don't have, and the comparison. And speak to someone, have a buddy. I talk about this a lot. You're the CEO of your own life, so who's on your board? So speak to someone about how you feel and how they feel on a regular basis around social media if you know that this is a pinch point for you. And I think also for workplaces, it's really vital to think about this, particularly if you've got large marketing teams that might be doing social media for the company and the organisation. How are you managing things for them? Is there a rota? Are there particular platforms? Have you found out what's more triggering for people? Do they also managing their own social media content, and how is that impacting on them? So it's vital to be thinking about this consistently and spotting signs in your team, family members and young people, and do be prepared to have that conversation. And many of us are still working in a wholly digital environment, so it's really important that we're conscious about this and not complacent, even though it might have become more of the norm. So just to wrap up then, social media isn't going anywhere. We know that it's important, we know that it enables us to be connected, and there's lots of positive about it. However, heavy social media use has a huge negative impact on both adults, young people and children alike. So we need to be really mindful and cognizant of the impacts of this. Half of all worldwide mental illness starts by the age of 14. And in the UK, 10% of children and young people aged between 5 to 16 years have a clinically diagnosable mental health issue. Now, this is the tip of the iceberg because it's the recorded figures. And I'm not saying social media is to blame for all of it, but remember it does have a part to play. So let's keep having those conversations. Be aware of the signs, the changes in behaviour that I highlighted. And also think about ways you could have a conversation with someone about it. Be mindful of your own well-being, how you like to use social media, what's helpful, what hinders you, what you'd like to do. Think about ways in which you might like to minimise your social media use if it's having a negative impact on you. And also, don't forget to review and reflect because things change. We know that we've been through a really difficult time globally, and every family and individual will also have been through their different ups and downs, peaks and troughs throughout this time. So if social media has helped you, brilliant. But make sure that it doesn't become an addictive habit, as we've seen from recent research. So I really hope that you found this episode useful. Why not share this on social media if you enjoyed it with the hashtag Digital Detox. I've also included some resources for you that you might like to use and look at further. So that's the Digital Detox Day website, hashtag I Am Whole, the Imperial College study from August 2019, the BBC News article about internet usage, and Mental Health First Aid's toolkit for the Hands Up for Mental Health in October 2018, which is specifically about young people and digital wellbeing and social media. And if you'd like to talk to me about this further, don't forget that you can book a free 30-minute call with me on my Calendly, and that's calendly.com/Layla, Leylao, Layla O. And don't forget, if you did enjoy, do share on social media, and why not leave me a review on Apple Podcasts? I'd love to hear what you think, or drop me a message on LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook. And I'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Diverse Minds podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you access your podcasts from. You can also connect with me on Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn. Tune into next week's episode of the podcast, where I'll bring you more insights on mental health and inclusion. Bye for now.